Welcome to Buildra. In this video, we'll show you how Wesley built the houseboat for overnight trips on lakes. He begins to build the cradle that will support the frames that allows him to join all panels together in proper shape. First of all, the bow should be done. Wesley cuts the half-in panels with an electric saw for proper shape. To get the desired thickness for the bow, multiple panels must be glued together. First, he and his wife coat each face with raw epoxy for a good soak. Then he uses epoxy thickened with fumed silica and spreads it evenly over the panels. He presses the panels on the level surface and adds weight to apply pressure until the epoxy cures. Now it's time to join the hull panels to make them full-length sheets, so the joints are covered with epoxy. A strip of fiberglass tape is being positioned under and over the top of each joint and covered with thickened epoxy. These frames are across sections of the hull shape, spaced at known intervals to create a three-dimensional mold. They carefully lift the long hole panels up onto the mold using fasteners to hang them in place. He uses a block plane and a router with a flush cut bit to trim all of the edges flush. The edges are being processed with the electric sander. The fiberglass tape holds the panels strongly together, but it shows noticeable creases. After sanding them, Wesley removes the splices with a power planer. Each of the seams is being covered with 3 staggered layers of basal fiberglass tape overlapping at the corners for added strength. After all seams were taped and cured, all remainders should be removed using an electric sander and power planer. For more durability, Wesley covers the whole length of the hull with the wide cloth of fiberglass. This ensures a good bond and increases stiffness. To create a fairing compound, Wesley mixes epoxy with fumed silica and phenolic microballoons. This additive makes an area consistent, which is easier to sand. Each surface receives 3 separate passes with the fairing compound, which are cured and sanded. After fairing and sanding, it's time to apply the final coatings on the bottom of the hull. The mixture of epoxy is thickened with graphite. The result is a hard but slippery surface that provides the best abrasion resistance. The other surface is cleaned and prepared for painting. First, the primer should be applied as a coat to ensure a good chemical bond. After adding the several layers of primer, the surface is being cured for a week and sanded. Once the hull is smooth, the paint can be applied. Wesley chooses the blue color and paints 3 coats, all waiting for the previous coat to dry. For upgrading the trailer, they are installing the new bunk with pine boards that are sanded, liquid nailed and screwed. Wesley drills holes in the middle of the bow and installs a rod and additional blocks of wood. He wraps a heavy-duty lifting strap under the all-thread rod at each end and begins to raise the hole using the chain hoists. After lots of hard work, the hull is finally upright. With the hull upright and leveled on the trailer, Wesley trims the sides flush with the rub rails and prepares the interior to receive fiberglass tape on all seams. Then he wets each seam with raw epoxy, and after that uses thickened epoxy to build a smooth transition between the panels. Once it is done, 3 layers of biaxial tape are installed. All the interior is being coated with the raw epoxy first, and then several layers of thickened epoxy are being added. Wesley assembles 4 stringers for the raised floor inside the boat. His wife helps him to coat the stringers with epoxy. He cuts central floor frames into 5 measured sections for proper spacing between the stringers. With the stringers spaced and leveled properly, he tacks them in place using small tabs of thickened epoxy. Then he installs baxial tape along each one and covers it with raw epoxy. Next, the frames are installed, which run perpendicular to the stringers. All the corners are sealed with the tape and epoxy, and this is repeated for all framing. According to the template, Wesley cuts and assembles the stringers that support the floor in the front cockpit. He applies the glue on each surface and presses the panels on the level surface, then adds weight to apply pressure until the glue dries. A 30-gallon fuel tank will be housed under the forward cockpit, so he builds a series of low frames to support the tank. Everything beneath the fuel tank floor is sealed with 3 coats of epoxy and covered with the plywood with holes, which will be filled with foam later. He lines all the upper perimeter of the floor frames with cleats to increase stiffness and support for the raised floor. The surfaces are being sanded as well. 2-pound density expanding foam is poured into the holes. So, the other spaces are under the front cockpit filled. This insulation dampens noise and stiffens the hull. The top sides of the frames are being glued and the foam-filled spaces are being covered with plywood. Wesley fills all of the corners and joints with thickened epoxy and uses fiberglass tape for more durability. Then he attaches the frame for the hatch that will cover the fuel tank. When all 4 sides are dried and ready, he inserts the fuel tank and makes sure there is enough clearance for the fittings on the top of the tank too. The rest of the cockpit spaces are filled with the foam, too. Next, Wesley drills the 10 holes where the outboard engine bracket will bolt onto the transom. He screwed stainless steel backing plates for attaching the engine bracket. Then, applying the sealant to the perimeter, the bracket is installed on the transom. The floor is installed on the cockpit, epoxied in place, and the edges are filleted and taped. Then he applies the fiberglass on the floor of the fuel tank compartment and the forward cockpit, so all the surfaces are epoxied to protect them from moisture. Wesley continues with the flooring, cuts the plywood to the proper sizes, and applies the frames. Cardboards are used for sizing and making templates. Then he cuts hatches for access to the underfloor compartments. Cleans all the dust with a vacuum cleaner and prepares the plywood for applying epoxy to its surface. He applies the glue and covers the frames. Again, all the corners and joints are filled with thickened epoxy and covered with the fiberglass tape. Next, he begins cutting the cabin bulkheads. One marks the rear of the cabin and includes a doorway, while the others define the middle section of the cabin where the kitchenette and bathroom will be located. Now, Wesley decides to rough in the layout for all the plumbing. The first step is building a custom shower pan for the bathroom, where he can install the shower drain. He cuts a set of wedges with a vertical drop, ensuring that any water collecting on the sloped surface drains forward into the pan. He saturates the parts with epoxy and glues them in place using staples for extra reinforcement. Once the glue dries, he sands the surface with a hand sander. It's time to check whether the pan is properly fitted in place. Wesley installs PVC tubing in the cuts of the floor to channel the shower water into a small tank equipped with an automatic sensor and pump. The transverse roof beams are made from 3 layers of plywood epoxy laminated together. He cuts the pieces for the beams with a jigsaw, then uses a flush cut bit on the router to trim them to the exact shape. Then, using the router, Wesley cuts 5 notches in the roof beams. These notches will hold 5 wooden stringers running the full length of the cabin roof. Next, Wesley cuts and assembles the 5 support stringers for the cabin roof. He rounds the bottom edges using a round-over bit to ensure a precise fit with the notches in the transverse beams. He then sets the stringers in place to serve as guides during the installation. Once all the bulkheads are filleted and taped in place, he proceeds to install the transverse beams. It's time to install the cabin sides. Each panel is dry fit in place, checked for fairness as it curves around the bulkheads, and then carefully scribed and trimmed. Once satisfied with the fit, Wesley tacks the panels in place with tabs of epoxy and then fillets and tapes them. He starts roofing by dry fitting each panel in place with clamps, ratchet straps, and screws so he can trace the roof beams and stringers underneath. Once the epoxy sets, the surface looks just right. With the cabin installed, the boat has really begun to take shape, but plenty of work still remains. Wesley installs a heavy-duty bow eye to tie it off when docking. Then he makes a shelf to reinforce the bow and store the anchor line. He measures and cuts a hole for a haw-fair lead, which will guide the anchor line through the bow so it fits perfectly. Next, he reduces the height of the stem to ease boarding by cutting the hull. Then fills and seals the roof with raw epoxy and covers it in one layer of backseal fiberglass, epoxying it once again. Wesley carefully installs a flush mount latch into the hatch leading to the fuel compartment, ensuring that it sits level with the surface for a clean, streamlined appearance. He precisely trims a thin layer from the surface so the latch fits perfectly and aligns flush with the surrounding area. The latch not only secures the hatch tightly in place, but also provides easy access for maintenance and inspection while maintaining a low profile to prevent snagging. Now, support cleat for the side deck should be installed. For added firmness, additional planks are screwed in place. Wesley then applies glue and attaches the side deck. He makes sure the alignment is precise before leaving it to set, and presses it down with his weight by walking on it. To secure the side deck, he screws the plywood at evenly spaced intervals. Once the deck is filleted and taped, he sands the surface. Additional 9-ounce fiberglass cloth is applied to the cabin sides and side decks, providing extra strength and durability. These areas are then coated with epoxy to ensure structural firmness and to create a moisture-resistant barrier. The cockpit is finished in the same way, utilizing a cover of durable fiberglass combined with epoxy resin to create a smooth, weather-resistant surface. This sealing process ensures long-lasting protection against moisture, UV exposure, and other harsh environmental conditions. And the entrance area receives identical treatment. Wesley begins by cutting precise face panels for the rear cockpit seats, shaping them to fit cleanly into the design. Next, he constructs hatch gutters around the storage compartments integrated into the seats, to ensure that any water is directed away. Once the plywood panels are positioned and securely screwed into place, all the joints are sealed with epoxy and reinforced with fiberglass tape to ensure a watertight and durable finish. One of the seats will also serve as the propane locker. The floor is raised to make room for the requisite safety drain, which ensures any escaping gases are vented overboard. Next, he turns his attention to the transom where he carefully cuts scupper slots to allow for efficient drainage. Each slot is sized to ensure that any water collecting in the cockpit can quickly and easily flow out, keeping the area dry and safe. Wesley makes drainage channels to guide any cockpit water through the seat faces and out through the scuppers. Inside the propane locker, he fills all voids with marine-grade foam and glues down the floor panel securely in place. Moving on to the seat tops, Wesley cuts precise face panels for each one, carefully shaping and adjusting them for a perfect fit. After positioning them in place, he sands the surfaces smooth to create clean transitions. Then seals all the joints with epoxy and fiberglass tape to reinforce the structure and provide a watertight bond. With the seat tops glassed in, he cuts out the access hatches and installs hatch gutters. To finish up this stage, he test fits a 20-pound propane tank into the locker and closes the hatch. Everything fits as planned. The cockpit is now nearly complete with only a few final touches remaining. Wesley cuts the hinges to a proper size and screws on the top of the seat. So he finishes installing the hatch lids. Next, he drills scuppers at the forward end of the cockpit to provide drainage for rain and any bilage water that may collect. These openings are carefully placed to ensure efficient water flow, helping keep the front section dry and preventing pooling during heavy weather or washdowns. Wesley completes the installation of the bow shelf, carefully filing and taping all the joints to ensure strength and a clean finish. He then moves on to installing the support cleat for the side decking that will extend along the cockpit. With the bow shelf in place, he sands it smooth and coats it in epoxy, sealing the surface and preparing it for the roofing layer. The planks are glued along the top to provide a solid bonding surface for the cover plywood that will be applied above. Reduced corners give a more pleasing intentional shape to the side decks. To achieve this, each edge is carefully rounded and softened. Next, all surfaces are meticulously sanded to ensure an even polished finish. It not only smooths out the wood, but also prepares the surface for strong, clean bonds in the next phases of construction. With everything prepped, Wesley moves on to cutting the side decks. Each piece of plywood is measured and trimmed for a precise fit. He positions them carefully and settles them firmly into place. The structure is really coming together, strong, clean, and built to last. Meanwhile, the covering panel for the bow shelf is meticulously cut to size and shaped to fit seamlessly. Once aligned, it's carefully applied and fastened in place. The edges are then sanded smooth, leaving a flawless, even surface. This smooth, polished finish sets the foundation for the final details to come, bringing the build one step closer to completion. Now the windows must be installed. Wesley, with the parts ready, assembles the window frame. Making sure every piece fits cleanly together, he continues cutting each plank to precise dimensions. Then cuts and frames the cabin sides to receive windows. He's going to install 4 windows on each side of the cabin to provide good visibility and ventilation. He cuts precise face panels for each one, carefully shaping and adjusting them for a perfect fit. One by one, framing is epoxied around each window cutout, and the plank frames are mounted from the inside. Everything looks just right. Now he moves on to shaping the final form of the cabin door framing. Once the shape is finalized, the frame is coated with epoxy and mounted securely from the inside. With both door frames in place, everything is ready for the next step, installing the cabin doors themselves. The panels are epoxied and then glued to each other firmly. The polyurethane board is installed between the plywood panels to maintain perfect shape and insulation. Once again, the door panels are coated with epoxy, a crucial step, especially considering the high humidity they'll be exposed to. This sealing process not only strengthens the panels, but also protects them from moisture infiltration, warping, and long-term wear. It's a small detail with a big impact, ensuring the cabin doors remain solid and reliable over time. One door is ready to be hung so it fits perfectly. Wesley installs hinges on the main door of the cabin to make a fold-up panel. He mounts strong magnets that will guide the door panel into the proper closed or open position when in use. The fold-up panel turned out to be one of the best design decisions. It neatly clears the seat outside, allowing for easy movement and better access. Plenty of exterior finishing details remain before the top sides can be painted. First up, he cuts and frames the windows and doorways at each end of the cabin. This front section is especially important. It'll be the driver's station, so visibility is key. The exterior of each window will be framed with the strips of plywood. Rounding the outer edges gives more durability and aesthetics. Next, Wesley builds and installs a custom hatch on the cabin roof designed specifically to house a ventilation fan. The hatch is carefully measured and framed to ensure a snug fit, allowing for proper airflow while keeping the installation clean and weather-tight. The rear windows are the same size, while the middle one is slightly wider. The frames overlap the window openings on all sides to create a lip that will later receive a sheet of plexiglass. It's time to fabricate the coamings for the cockpit. Each coaming is cut from sturdy 2-inch plywood chosen for its strength and flexibility. To make the plywood bend more easily, a series of notches are carefully cut along the inner curve. This relieves tension and allows it to flex without cracking. To further assist the shaping process, the plywood is treated with boiling water, softening the fibers just enough to form it smoothly around the desired radius. Each curved plank is carefully positioned and screwed along the inner edge of the side deck, ensuring a tight, secure fit. After the coamings have dried in place with the desired curvature, Wesley scrapes thickened epoxy into the notches to bond the curves permanently into shape. Now Wesley turns his attention to building heavy-duty bunks to support the front half of the boat on the trailer. Each bunk is carefully curved and beveled to match the shape of the hull, ensuring even support along its length. Once shaped, he tops them with low-friction glides to make launching and retrieving the boat smoother and easier. With everything prepared, the bunks are positioned beneath the hull and then securely screwed into place on the trailer. The boarding ladder is a key feature of the boat, designed with both function and convenience. It's mounted to be easily lifted up or swung down smoothly. All remaining barewood surfaces receive 3 coats of epoxy. Once they are fully cured, Wesley moves on to the finishing stages, starting with a coat of marine-grade primer to prepare the surface for paint. Then the entire exterior is carefully painted in a crisp, clean white, giving the boat a fresh, polished look. With the painting complete, all previously removed hardware is reinstalled. Hinges go back in place, aligned and secured, and the locking handle on the fuel locker is reattached, restoring both function and finish. Next, the stainless steel rails are installed along the top side of the boat, 3 on each side, giving the finished look to the exterior. Also, several key accessories are mounted in their proper places. Water drain fittings, door locks, and hose pipes are all installed with care and precision. Wesley gives each piece a final polish using a special stainless steel cleaner. And finally, the finishing touch. A main design element that really gives the boat a bit of character. A custom-made sticker, charming and playful. Work on the cabin interior finally begins, marking a new phase in the build. Each wall panel is cut from plywood, then carefully trimmed and adjusted to fit snugly within the cabin framing. Once shaped, both sides of every panel are coated with a high-quality sealer to ensure comfort and energy efficiency. The cabin walls are insulated using XPS foam board. The rigid foam panels are cut to fit between the framing, and expanding foam is applied around the edges, both sealing and locking the insulation in place. This keeps the cabin cozy in any weather. After sanding all the surfaces to smooth out imperfections, they are coated with the layer of epoxy. It's hard work, but absolutely critical for achieving high-quality finishes. Next, 5 frames need to be done. 4 of them for the windows and 1 for the bulkhead of the cabin. All 5 frames must be carefully measured and crafted to guarantee a perfect fit. The floor access hatches are also carefully sealed using a durable epoxy compound. Every gap is meticulously filled with foam, including all the joints between the frames and XPS boards, ensuring complete insulation and structural integrity. Each seam is then sealed with foil tape to create an airtight and reflective barrier. Wesley carefully paints the side walls and window frames with a crisp, clean white color, ensuring every surface is evenly coated. The fresh white paint brightens up the materials, giving them a renewed, polished look. Once the paint has completely dried, he begins the process of installing the walls and window frames inside the cabin. Piece by piece, the transformation takes shape. The windows are installed using a high-quality marine-grade sealant to ensure a watertight and secure fit. These custom-made windows come equipped with built-in screens. The windows themselves are made of thick cast acrylic plexiglass, chosen for its excellent clarity and durability. For long-term performance in a harsh marine environment, they are sealed with silicone building sealant. Interior blinds provide effective protection from sunlight and UV damage. The same process is applied to the remaining windows as well. For added strength and long-term flexibility, the exterior of each window is sealed with a high-performance sealant. Next, Wesley moves on to complete the remaining 4 windows. The frames have already been prepared and are ready to receive the acrylic plexiglass panels. Each panel is carefully fitted into place and sealed using a high-adhesive marine-grade silicone. This is a strong bond between the plexiglass and the frame. Finally, Wesley installs a ventilation fan on the cabin roof to ensure proper airflow. Now it's time to hit the road and head towards the water. The long hours of work have paid off, and the boat is ready for its first official launch.